Retro.
Hi, this is Emily Swallow, the Armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And let's get this week going with some Clone Wars discussion. But before we get into that, Jay, where can we be found around the internet?
All right. We are very conveniently and easily found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The digital line, the signal is boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. And we are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So we'll be discussing episode 19 of season 1 of Clone Wars, which is called Storm over Ryloth. I want to pause there for just a second. Remember when shows would do seasons and they would be 20 some odd episodes long?
Yes.
And here we are in episode 19. We haven't even got through season 1. It just is weird, everything comes out now. It's like 8, maybe 12 if you're lucky. So
it's so true.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, let's get into discussion. Jay, you want to go ahead and give us the summary of the episode, please?
Oh, definitely. When the Jedi and the Republic decide to invade the separatist-held world of Ryloth, they send Anakin Skywalker and his Padawan, Ahsoka Tano, to break the separatist blockade of the planet. The initial assault does not go well, and Anakin's fleet takes heavy losses. Disheartened by her own failures in the attack, Ahsoka doubts herself before Anakin places her in charge of their second attempt to break the blockade. With some added support from Admiral Yularen, Ahsoka devises a successful plan that crushes the blockade and opens Ryloth to Generals Kenobi and Windu's ground assault.
Yes. Right. So I know we do this a lot, but this episode is the start of a great trilogy. And, this one comes up, it's like, oh, that episode. Because I really love what they do with these 3 episodes. And it's, every one of these episodes from season 1 has, I think, a bit more special meaning just because it was that first season. This is how my kids got into Star Wars and stuff like that. And I've seen so many times. I just haven't watched it as much recently. But I was really excited to watch this today before we recorded. But what do you think about this one? What's your overall thought about it?
Well, thinking back to when this is in the entire time frame of things, it's almost crazy to think about the fact that this is happening only in season 1. And when I say only in season 1, because there's so many other impactful arcs and storylines that this one, going back to the genesis of the series, really does have a huge impact. And the Ryloth arc in general is so impactful. But this particular episode of the arc, I think, really does dive into some amazing character development. And, there's some intense things that go on. There's a great space battle, obviously. And, just a lot of things that make you think about the relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka and her role as a young commander. And, there's a lot at stake here. And yet it still has some great callbacks and little Easter eggs. And, it really does set the stage for things that are used not only before this, but also after it as well. So there's some inspirations that came from works in the past that show up in this. And then that also shows up in the future. And I know you know what I'm talking about, but we'll get to it.
Well, one comment I want to make about this trilogy of episodes that we got coming up is that they really do focus on different Jedi every single time.
Yeah.
And it is one of the things I like about that is that as opposed to having Anakin and Ahsoka break the blockade, then lead the ground assault, then conduct the final battle, here we get to see different Jedi carrying out different parts of this mission. And that was just really appealing to me because one of the things that they were selling to us when they announced the series is how we were following different Jedi on adventures around the galaxy. Now, as the series developed, it focused way more on Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka,
Right.
which is fun. Not every episode was that way. We have Padme episodes in there as well, but we got less and less of the other Jedi as time went on, and that's fine. It focused on the big three of the Clone Wars there. But you're right. This is a good Anakin and Ahsoka episode, which gives way to a good Obi-Wan episode, which gives way to a good Mace Windu episode there.
Yes.
And it tells a really great story about the battle to reclaim this planet from the Separatists overall.
Mhm.
And so, anyways, I was really excited when we got into this because it's like, yes, we got 3 good weeks of Clone Wars
Oh,
coming up,
yeah.
and Disney Plus
Definitely.
was glad that I finally started watching this again. So maybe I'll stop getting emails from them about, you know, finish the Clone Wars. It's like,
You
oh,
wanna
not even
finish this
close,
one?
Disney Plus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, just
Uh,
just, hold my blue milk for a while, it'll be fine.
okay.
But no, it's such a foundational episode, or I should say arc in so many ways that
Uh-huh.
it just really lays the foundation for a lot of things in the entire series.
Right. So the summary that you read is a very high level view of everything here. And what's really going on in this is that we've got a battle to break the blockade. Anakin's in charge of it, but he tasks Ahsoka with leading the squadron that's going to assault the main Separatist battle cruiser, which is under the command of a Nymodian named Tuk. And the problem is that he springs a trap on them, and then rather than obeying orders, Ahsoka makes things worse by insisting she can pull off this mission, even though they've told her to come back. Yularen orders her to come back. Anakin orders to come back, and she doesn't do it. She ends up taking some losses, and Yularen gets injured, and the 3 Republic ships get way more damage than they should have because they don't
Yeah.
have any fighter support there. So it's a learning moment for Ahsoka here. What'd you think? I mean, it really is an act of insubordination. What did you think about this moment for Ahsoka?
Oh, it truly is insubordination, and she was trying to appear responsible, that she was capable, and she didn't want to let anyone down. And I do think that at first she was really excited, and she kept even saying, this is your first command. Aren't you nervous? And she's like, I wish everybody would stop saying that kind of thing. So she was very confident in her own abilities going into it. Perhaps to the point of being obviously a little bit cocky, because she even throws that back to Anakin and says, you've done things like this before. And so it's just a different type of a context for Ahsoka, and she really does backtrack a lot and ends up feeling awful for it. But yeah, I mean, she even says at one point, "Cool your jets, Admiral."
Yeah.
Whoa. you know, and that was one of the things for me. I remember even seeing this the first time around because I had finally started warming up to Ahsoka, because it's no, you know, thing that I've said in the past that I was not an Ahsoka fan at first. And so then this happened and I was like, "Oh, wait, wait, wait. No, 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 no. You did not just go there, girlfriend." And she did. So
Yeah.
it was a little bit of a backtrack for her, but she recovered very, very nicely towards the end of this episode. But what
Took
were
some
your
coaxing.
feelings?
Yeah, but she got
Yeah,
there.
it did. Mhm.
Yeah. She's lucky she's a Jedi because, I
Yeah.
mean, anyone else would get court-martialed for that.
Mhm.
You disobey orders, you get your squadron obliterated. It leads to more casualties with the rest of the fleet, and she gets to skate because of who she is as a Jedi. It's all part of the story, so I don't want to dwell on that too much here because it's Jedi and clones fighting this war, right? Who else are they going to turn to in all of this? And on the other hand, Ahsoka was put in this position by Anakin, her master, as kind of like a learning thing. He thought she could handle it there. And
Mhm.
she's not wrong. This is the type of Anakin would have done. But he points out, it's like when she throws that in his face, yeah, that only means I know how you're feeling right now. It doesn't make it right in this situation. And so they're going to have to deal with that. And what I love about it is that Anakin's not letting her dwell on this failure. He's using it as a learning opportunity for all it's worth, which is, she's sulking because, so many people died in this. And he's like, that's the reality of leadership here.
Mhm.
You have to make these tough calls. You have to be in a position. You got people that are depending on you. And he tries to say it's not your fault. It was a trap. I think it's better off to say it was not all your fault. It was a trap. There still would have been losses, but if she had done what she was supposed to, they would have been minimized to
Sure.
that regard. But, he's in the middle of like moving on. And he goes, "What I need for you," and he turned around and she's gone. Right. And she goes to check
Mhm.
on Yularen there. And and then he has to basically give her no choice again, which is, I'm going to take the defender and I'm going to steer right into the heart of that battleship. And I'm going to get out in an escape pod. It's your job to lead the rest of the battle and save my butt,
Yeah.
which, you know, that's a big choice right there.
It is. It is indeed. And there's a few things in this that I really appreciated as far as with the relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka. Anakin was so gentle with Ahsoka, and he could have really reprimanded her in a stern way, but I think he recognized a lot of himself in what Ahsoka did and just basically saying, I've been there, and he even says at one point, "Take heart, little one." He was just so gentle with her, which is obviously something that later on he loses as part of himself through all of the things that he's been through. But this whole experience just in general, the fortune cookie at the beginning, it is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness, just shows that you're gonna make mistakes. There's gonna have to be room for growth. Unfortunately, her mistakes did involve the loss of life, which is huge, and almost the loss of, a lot more than that, but it's part of the growth process, and that was part of what Ahsoka needed to learn from this.
I wonder if there was if they were consciously considering the previous episode, Mystery of a Thousand Moons, when they were doing this one. And I say that because Ahsoka's coming off a high there. She was there in Dr. Vindy's lab. She gets exposed to the Blue Nile virus, but then still helps Padme carry out the mission and keep the droids from getting out and releasing it everywhere. And then Padme tells Anakin, your Padawan was brilliant. And Anakin pays her that compliment in the end. So did her
Ah, good
head get a little,
points.
yeah, did her head get a little bit big, which kind of led her to, when it came to being in charge of first command, inflate her ego a little bit on this to the point where she's like, I can't fail now. I just did such a great
Mhm,
job last time on
mhm.
this. Or
No,
is
I
this
think
just
that's a
all
great
happenstance?
point.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's a great point. I don't think it's happenstance, and I think that's a great way to tie the last episode in with this one because you're right. She was very highly complimented, and not only that, but she was coming off of the narrow escape of death, and so she was coming back with this full vigor and a renewed sense of purpose and, "Gosh, I can do anything," kind of thing. So I think that's a great thing that you pointed out there.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
So with a fun fact here, the plan that she comes up with, whereas Anakin's pulling off his part of it, she's going to bring in the Resolute, which is Anakin's command ship, turn on its side, and use the hull as a shield for the Y-wings so that they can fly out the top and then basically trap the frigates in a pincer movement and destroy them. And if you watch the featurette for this episode on StarWars.com, Dave Filoni talks about how he lifted that off of Heir to the Empire. It was a
Yeah.
maneuver that Thrawn originated. And I just love those things. I mean, I know Filoni was familiar with Thrawn and those characters well before he got into this, but just kind of seeing that side of his Star Wars geekdom come out was just really cool.
Oh, yeah, and I watched that featurette, and you could just tell that I mean, Filoni basically said this needed to be on screen,
Mhm.
and so when I watched that and I was like, "Okay, I gotta find out more about this," and the maneuver is called the Marg Sable. There is a ton of different YouTube videos on this,
Oh, really?
and just oh, yeah, like, I totally went down a rabbit hole, and so just talking about the maneuver itself and, of course, as you just pointed out, where it came from, and then apparently it was also shared to Thrawn in now canon in the Thrawn, alliances or allegiances? Alliances novel, and Anakin apparently tells Thrawn about this move in that novel, and so then
Huh.
Thrawn ends up using it. So, one of the videos that I watched mentioned how amazing would this be if it came back full circle and we get to see the Marg Sable in live action in the Ahsoka series.
That'd be pretty sweet.
I
Yeah,
know, right?
yeah,
So it's and I could totally see something like that happening because we've gotten so many different callbacks and, we always say Star Wars is like poetry, it rhymes, and we bring a lot of these things back. So the fact that Dave Filoni brought this from Legends into canon, into animation, and then into the novels, and then into,
yeah.
live action, I just think would be absolutely just astounding, just amazing.
Never ending circle of storytelling there. So,
Heck
yeah.
yeah, I'm here for it.
Let's steer it back just a bit to what was going on with Ahsoka, and this time kind of in the context of Yularen here. He suffers directly because of the decision that she made not to follow orders. But then when Ahsoka goes to visit him in the medical bay, he's supposed to be unconscious, but the medical droid reports that he's stable. And then she's just like, "I'm so sorry," and then she gets up and leaves. And then he opens his eyes like he
Mhm,
was playing possum this entire time. Ahsoka goes back, and Anakin's placed her in charge of this other part of the mission. But Rex and the other clone are not confident in this at all, and they're not directly doubting Ahsoka, but it's apparent that they do, to the
mhm,
point where they're saying things like, "Oh, I wish General Skywalker would have discussed this with us here," and stuff like that. And then finally, it's Yularen showing up. Because Ahsoka says, like, "We don't have time for another plan. Anakin needs me now." And then Yularen says, like, "Yes, she does." And Yularen backs her and says, "This is the plan we got." It's like, and then someone asks, is like, "Was it going to work?" And then he turns to Ahsoka and says, "Will it?" And she's like, "Yes." So she just displays that confidence. So that's the setup. My question here is, what'd you think about Yularen placing that faith in Ahsoka after everything that happened? Were you surprised
mhm.
at all?
Not necessarily, and as far as him playing possum is concerned, at that point in time, maybe he was a little bit, and as he should be, I mean, I would be too, a little bit upset with Ahsoka and just wasn't ready to talk to her just yet, so he was able to hide behind the mask of his supposed unconsciousness, but then realizing how incredibly sorry she was for it, and the fact that she saw her mistake. I mean, your Lauren had to learn along the way too, and so perhaps maybe it was something that brought him back to an experience that he had as, a young officer learning the ropes and seeing this potential in Ahsoka, and just the fact that Anakin obviously believed in her so deeply, and I do believe that Yularen has a really deep respect for Anakin. So he put that trust in her because of Anakin. But one other thing I do wanna say really quickly, the point that you made about Rex and the other clone, you could tell that Rex wanted to put his faith in Ahsoka, but he was having a hard time. The other clone was very
Yeah.
blatantly against it.
Yeah.
So it was kinda like Rex hated the fact that he felt that way, you could just tell. He wanted to believe in her, but then when Yularen just, like, struts in, as you said, and said, "Will it work?" And Ahsoka said, "Yes." So, part of me just believes that he did see that potential, to answer your question. So it wasn't super surprising to me, but it was definitely a good thing to see. But what did you think?
Honestly, I'm kind of struggling with this because
Mhm.
for a couple reasons. One, I've seen Yularen accuse Anakin and the Jedi of being reckless in other episodes here. He's
That's a
not
good point. Mhm.
he's not always 100% bought in on them. And I think there'll be a time or two in the next upcoming episodes where he's going to express that frustration with them. But, fine, different writers for different episodes, that type of stuff happens. Two, I don't know that he really had a choice. As you pointed out, Anakin's in charge here. Yularen reports to him on
Mhm.
this. And so, and Anakin left Ahsoka in charge of the second half of the operation. Part of that was because Yularen was not at that moment up and around, capable of leading the second half of the operation. I guess the other thing about it is that, it is very, very forgiving for someone who screwed up so badly and there was no consequences. There's no time for consequences. I get it. And I do like it that he ultimately that he liked it, that he placed his faith in her. But it is just that one story element. One of the things that Dave Filoni talks about in the featurette is that, they had a problem when they were putting this together about, Ahsoka didn't seem remorseful enough. So they had to go back and add some things
Mhm.
there in order to make it look like that. And yeah, that's great. But at the same time, I would like there have been just something else that made that trust feel a little bit more earned, if you know what I mean,
Mhm. No, I
when it
do.
comes to this episode.
No, I totally get that, and I think that's a good point. I don't think we have enough time in this episode to be able to do that, just
Yeah.
from that standpoint. But maybe Yularen just bonked his head a little hard, and he's
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
little Lulu at this point. No, sure, yeah, this is a great idea. Why don't you just take charge? But no, I do like the fact that you pointed out that there really weren't any consequences, quote unquote, for Ahsoka, except for natural consequences. So, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, what she had to do was just restorative justice in the best way that she possibly could, is to fix things by rising above it and proving herself to be capable as she should have been the first time around, but even more.
Mhm. What did you think of Anakin's plan to take out the battle cruiser?
It's so Anakin-esque. I mean, that's so Anakin. I mean, there's so many things about that plan that is unhinged, and that's just how he has been in the Clone Wars. But he trusts his own logic more than anything else, and he also does it in a way that definitely sticks it to the separatists. And I
Mhm.
think that there's always a part of him that is wants to do that directly just because of his experiences in The Phantom Menace. It is a little reckless, obviously, and, he is that type of a Jedi, but he does, in fact, place, once again, a lot of faith in Ahsoka that this is gonna work, and that, like you said, she's gonna save his butt, and puts all of that faith in there, and even when Obi-Wan shows up, "Why is Anakin floating in an escape pod?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Do I want to know?" kind of thing.
There's only got one
Um,
ship left. Don't ask.
yeah, exactly, but what do you think?
Well, so here's the thing. There's two things here. Yes, he places his faith in Ahsoka, and we've covered that. The other part is the taking this battle cruiser and destroying I'm sorry, the Republic cruiser, and then using it to destroy the Separatist battle cruiser. And the more I think about it, okay, the logic makes sense. They have one shot at this. Obi-Wan and Mace Windu's attack fleet's going to be there, and if they can't get this blockade taken care of, then they're going to have to postpone the invasion. And the Twi'leks don't have time for that. They're suffering now. They got to get
Mhm,
relief now when it comes down to it. So drastic times call for drastic measures. But wow, that's one heck of a drastic measure, right? Taking
mhm,
single-handedly taking command of a ship with just R2D2 and piloting it right into uh, you know, the the command ship there. Kind of reminded me when they used a Super Star Destroyer to destroy a world ship in the New Jedi Order. They did something similar there.
mm,
I think it was Wedge that piloted it right into the world ship there. But that's a
okay,
discussion for another. So maybe, hey, more Legends influence
there you
there.
go, there you go. And very
Yeah.
expensive, maneuver too. We
Yeah.
were pointing out how it was, Count Dooku that was talking to Grievous about his wastefulness of the droids, and
Uh-huh.
here's Anakin taking a huge ship and just crashing it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, I liked his guile when it came down to it. He comes into this ruse. I mean, the I think for as a renowned as a genius as Murtuck is supposed to be, kind of falling for this, I'm ordered to surrender myself, the ship, and this crew if you agree to allow relief supplies to be delivered to the Twi'leks below. Yeah, I know the little bit of gullibility, I think, on Murtuck. I did like the fact that Murtuck, like, ordered up Anakin's file from the Separatists to study him, and, at one point, he tells the droids to prepare for battle because and they're like, "Well, wait, are we under attack?" And he's like, "Nope, but we will be because Anakin's coming
Mhm.
back." And I thought that was a neat element, as an intelligent Separatist commander, uh, who ultimately leaves the droids behind to fend for themselves as he heads to escape pod. That was fantastic there. But yeah, so it was a very daring move by Anakin there, and he gets the point across. And I guess the other thing to keep in mind is this is a show aimed at kids,
Yeah.
so it grows up a little bit with each passing season, and season 7 is way more grown up than season 1 when you come down
Mhm.
to it. But
Mhm.
so I don't know, it just kind of seems drastic there, and I'm not sure if it's completely believable, but it works for the point of this episode, and I still love this episode. It's just, again, with the
Oh,
benefit of
yeah.
hindsight, now I'm wondering here. Um, Couple elements of trivia I want to address here before we wrap things up. First off, we get an appearance from R2KT, which is a pink astromech droid. Are you familiar with R2KT, Jay?
I am. Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah, the backstory on that droid is that it was created by the R2D2 Builders Club in 2005 as a tribute to Katie Johnson, who was the 7-year-old daughter of Albin Johnson, who was the founder of the 501st Legion. She had been suffering from brain cancer, and they built the droid to kind of be a companion to her, maybe
Mhm.
provide some, a distraction of sort. And of course, she ended up passing away tragically. And then, but R2KT has been used in a lot of fundraising efforts by the 501st. They raise a lot of money in her memory, and so that goes towards the entire charity mission of the 501st to begin with. But R2KT's appearances don't stop there. She showed up in the Clone Wars movie. She shows up in several other episodes of the Clone Wars and makes an appearance in The Force Awakens. So kind of get to see her tweedle around here in the background was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and I actually got a chance to see R2KT in person at one of the celebrations, and I can't remember which one it was, but they were there with that droid, and that was really
Yeah,
cool.
she's been around for a couple of them, I believe. So
Mhm.
and then the other thing is that this episode marks the return of the view screen, the Flash Gordon style view screen from the Phantom Menace. That's what
Oh, yeah,
Murtuck is talking to Anakin over there. So neat little return special effect on that one.
indeed.
Um, that's what I got on this episode. Is there anything else you want to discuss before I wrap it up?
Oh, gosh, I don't think so. Again, I think we hit all the high points here, and it's just an amazing introduction to what we're going to be getting over the next 2 weeks. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about these because, again, it's just such a foundational arc. And this episode definitely does have a lot of those great points to hit on for sure. And it was amazing to get to revisit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Obi-Wan, Waxer, and Boyle are up on deck. So get ready for
Yes.
that episode next week.
So excited.
Okay. Well, then, I just want to say thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and our discussion of episode 19 of season 1 of the Clone Wars. If you haven't already done so, we'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button for the podcast. And then that way you'll be able to get all of our discussions of the Clone Wars. We go forward automatically, downloaded to you on Mondays for the foreseeable future until we get to Andor, and we'll take a break then. And then, of course, while you're subscribing, we'd love it if you'd give us a rating and review on whatever podcatcher you use that supports such things. That's a great way to help the show grow. And if you want to find more about Podcast Stars, head over to retrozapp.com and look for our page there. We have our entire catalog of shows there. And then you can find pages for all the other great podcasts that are on the network as well. Jay, you want to remind everybody where we can found again on social media and elsewhere online?
Sure thing, Dennis. We are on Instagram and Facebook conveniently at Podcast Stardust. And we do have a Pinterest page with tons of different kinds of boards that you can look up for all kinds of amazing ideas of Star Wars things for parties and even nails and fashion and lifestyle kinds of things. So head over to Pinterest and check that out. And then we also have our two YouTube outlets. So we are appearing on the regular YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So you can listen to the episodes over there. And you can also leave us some reviews and interact with some comments as well. So with that, we also have our T Public store, and the link to that is in our show notes. and you can get basically one of 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of different goods between apparel and home goods. So, coffee mugs, t shirts, even baby onesies, tote bags, wall hangings. And we always love to see that out in the wild. So, if you do happen to get anything, please make sure you share that with us as well. And once again, the link to that is in our show notes.
All right. You want to remind everybody what is going on in the world of cosplay?
Absolutely. So you can always catch all of my adventures over on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And right now you can catch me as Ahsoka, the fourth sister, 2 different versions of Hera, my original concept Mandalorian, and sometimes I sprinkle in things like Leia and some other types of Star Wars characters as well. But I am working on 2 non-Star Wars characters coming up for Fan Expo Cleveland here in March. And so just be on the lookout for those and for all the other fun. And again, that's at j.snips cosplay.
All right. Upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we are going to get back into some vintage Star Wars with a look at Caravan of Courage and Ewok Adventure. This was a made for television Star Wars movie from 1984. Go check it out and then stick around for our discussion. This is going to be fun. And then on Friday, we'll be getting back into some Star Wars news. So with that, just want to say thanks for listening to episode 843. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.